Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/IDOWorkHereLady, where instead of Karens mistaking customers as employees, they think employees are frickin' customers, guys. Ain't that something? And in today's episode, OP tells a tale where a Karen attacks her coworker with pepper spray, and it gets worse. I hope you enjoy the stories, don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So I'm a security guard contractor. I'm basically an on-call 24/7 officer in charge of a shopping plaza of about 20 odd stores. I'm good at my job, but I'm very aware of where my authority ends, at the door of every business. I handle the plaza as a whole, and I'm in charge of all the exterior of the building and the parking lot areas. I'll occasionally be asked to spook someone, keep a lookout, or back up a manager at a shop, but they are fully aware that if I did anything, it would be as a private citizen because while I'm in the store, I'm a customer. With that being said, I do go into shops to shop. And for the most part, I'm talking with employees, joking around, grabbing food, and getting out. If stopped and asked, I will usually lend a hand, but again, I do not work there. Lastly, I only have 3 people who can override my authority: my 2 direct bosses and the property manager. All 3 love me because, again, I'm good at my job. With that said, Karen's a regular, but she doesn't bother me anymore. And here's her story. It starts off with me going into the grocery store, and as I'm walking down one of the aisles, an elderly lady stops me to ask if I could grab an item off the top shelf for her. No big deal, as I'm 6'3", but I'm a friendly giant to her 4-foot and shrinking self. I obliged and moved on my merry way, and then I hear snapping behind me. And I don't like that. Karen is snapping her fingers at me and she's shouting down the aisle at me like a dog. But she might have a genuine complaint about something in my area, so I go and see what she wants. No, Karen says to me, "It's about time. I've been waiting here for 10 minutes and I can't find this brand of dog food. Now go to the back and get me some." I tell her I don't work here. I can't go in the back and I can't do anything for you. I then tell her to look for someone in a green polo as I'm in a gray and black security uniform, which is pretty standard. Karen says, "Oh, you just helped her. You can help me." To which I responded, "Even if I wanted to help you, which I don't, I'm not able to because I don't work here." Now bear with me, the "I do work here" part is coming. So I walk away as she's exploding obscenities at me. Whatever. I pay for my items, go sit in my vehicle on the job site. Karen comes out onto my site fuming like 15 minutes later. She stands by her vehicle and she opens a whole bag of bread, freshly bought, and she starts throwing clumps on the ground. I then get out of my vehicle and approach Karen as she's now my problem. I say to her, "Ma'am, I'm gonna have to ask you to stop littering." Karen says, "F you, I'm feeding the ducks." I tell her, "Okay, ma'am, I'm gonna have to ask you to stop feeding the ducks and leave the property. You're making a mess." That's when Karen says, "F you, you effing snob. What are you going to do about it? You don't work here." I tell her, "No, ma'am, I don't work for that shop. I work for the property that they rent from, the part that you're standing on, the part that you're currently littering on, and the part that if you don't leave, I'll be forced to take the next legal action available to me. Now it's your choice. You can either go or stay, but what happens next is on you." So with that, Karen continues the tirade, screaming at me that she's allowed to feed animals and I'm a bad person for making ducks starve. So I call the police. They show up and I tell them what's up, and Karen goes nuclear level Karen. The woman starts freaking out at the cops and she gets told to leave or risk fines and trespassing. They don't want to deal with her either. I'm also not pressing for anything, just to have her gone. At this point, I'm leaning against my car just watching. So the officer comes back after running her ID and it's instant handcuffs. Apparently, someone skipped a court date and had a bench warrant. Good job, Karen. And later that evening, her car gets towed for leaving it on the property overnight. Not by me, another company. My final interaction with Karen happened a few days later. I'm on site, another day, another dollar, when I spot 4 women huddled over something. So I go to investigate. A baby bird fell out of its nest, and I offered to take care of it, so I scoop it up into my hand and cuddle it into my beard. The 3 women start to coo because it's kind of cute. And that's when the 4th woman looks me dead in the eye and says, You're that a-hole, get away from us." Her cohorts then turn to me confused, and I smile and say, "Yes, ma'am, I certainly am." and then proceeded to walk away with a new bird friend. Karen has never bothered me again. Guys, I love that follow-up interaction. Don't give him attention, he's an a-hole. Oh, Karen, like, her heart was in the right place feeding the ducks, but if you're asked to move off property by someone dressed in a security outfit, I think it's best you leave. So I work for a company that sells backup power sources for both residential and commercial customers. My job is to go into big box stores, set up displays, and represent my company while trying to get potential leads. Now, I'm not an employee of these stores, but I technically work there when my show's there. Now that you know what I do, here's the story. This took place 3 months into the whole virus thing. I came to the store and was working that particular week. Now, I normally go through the back, but the back door was closed and locked, so I just walk around front, as I had remembered they started the senior/disabled only shopping hour. Remember that? There's a crowd of younger people sitting outside, waiting to be let in. Now, I'm 30 years old. I'm wearing my business suit and store vendor name tag, so the employee let me go straight inside, with no questions asked. I was also holding a part of my display, so clearly I was going into work. I see a lady, and she, like most of those outside, is looking a little annoyed. Suddenly, I hear someone yell, "Hey, how come he gets to go inside and we don't?" I then turn and it was the lady, Karen. Now at this point, I'm thinking she just didn't see my name tag, so I turn around to face her so she can see it. And I say, "I work here." Karen says, "No, you don't. You don't have a store badge, and your uniform looks nothing like the store's uniform. You'd better not be shopping." She just yells at me. So I pull my lanyard up to show her my name tag and say, "You're right, it's a vendor badge for this store." The employee also backs me up by telling her that I do work at the store. Karen then proclaims that I have no right to be there since I don't look disabled and clearly I'm not over 65. I just at that point start to walk away and she attempts to follow me inside. The employee steps in her way and tells Karen to go back outside, and that's when she pushes him. I saw this out of the corner of my eye, so I try to de-escalate the situation. I say to the woman, "Ma'am, I have 2 things that allow me to be here during the shop early hour. One is my vendor badge, and the other is a disability card." I then show her my card that the county issued to me. And that's when Karen screams, "I want to see the manager." The employee radios for the manager and politely asked her to wait outside, to which Karen's response is, "No, I want to see the manager right now. This person's not supposed to be here at this hour. It's for elderly and disabled only." By this time, Karen's making enough ruckus to get the other waiting customers to defend us. She still waits inside. The manager comes over and asks me what the problem is. She tells him how I'm not supposed to be here, that I don't work for the store, and that I'm faking my disability to do shopping at this hour. The manager explains to Karen that she's right and wrong. I don't work for his store, but I do work at his store. And I have every right to be here during the senior and disability only hour. He also asked her to get out of the store until it's fully open. She refuses again, and she demands to have me removed. At this point, he now tells her that she can leave willingly or have her removed by police. He also tells me to go ahead and head to my station since he'll deal with it. I do just that. About an hour later, I realized I forgot a cable in my car and I need to go get it. I go out and see a police officer leaning over the passenger window of his cruiser. He's telling her that she can either leave quietly or he can take her to jail. She sees me and she's livid. Priceless. The officer took her to jail. She was charged with criminal trespass and disturbing the peace. Guys, I will never understand that logic. Like, some people would rather cause a scene and get hauled off to jail ending their shopping trip than to just admit defeat. Like, I'm willing to bet that Karen just didn't want to be wrong, so she just kept going and going and going. Like, accusing OP of faking employment to get into the store to shop early, that's reaching really hard, especially when he's got a vendor uniform on. And for all who are wondering, OP says they revoked her membership and they banned her for life from ever getting one again. She can't even shop online unless she pays the extra fee, and only on certain cheap items. Okay, so this story didn't happen directly to me. It happened to a coworker, but I was there, and I saw most of the pertinent parts. It's also worth noting that I don't know the backstory for the lady in this matter, and maybe she had a reason to react the way she did, but it still wasn't okay. A little background first. This was a few years ago when I worked at a department store in one of the larger cities in Australia. It was an upmarket store in a large shopping center which sold mostly clothing and homeware. It was a big store split over a couple of floors, and it was further divided into a number of different zones, with each zone being staffed by 2 to 3 workers at a time, depending on how busy it was. The uniform was a simple black shirt and pants for men and a black blouse, skirt, and tights for women. Everyone had a name badge as well. I was in my mid-20s at the time, and I'd only been working there for a couple of weeks, so I was still required to be supervised by a more senior worker while I was on shift. On this particular day, I was working in the women's clothing section that was big enough to be split into 2 zones, with myself and my partner in the second zone. My shift partner for the day was a girl who I'm going to call Gothic Rock Girl. Now, Gothic Rock Girl was only a teenager, but she'd been working at the store for 2 years, and she really knew her stuff. So I was glad to have her with me. For this story to make sense, you'd need to understand that Gothic Rock Girl was a 6'2" giant of a girl. She had short hair and a body shape more in the way of muscles than curves. She also had sort of a face that I would say veered more towards being handsome than pretty, and the voice being on the lower end for girls. With that being said, she was wearing a blouse and skirt combo. Anyways, most of our shift passed without incident, and the lunchtime rush was winding down into a period that was usually pretty slow, so we both decided that we didn't need to hang around the service desk anymore. There had been a lot of women going in and out of the changing rooms, and while they're supposed to bring back anything they've worn but aren't buying to the service desk, we had seen plenty come out without the clothes they had gone in with. As such, Goth Girl goes into the changing rooms to clean up, collecting the discarded clothes so they could be checked, cleaned if needed, and then hung back up. A customer came to the service desk around this time, so I was doing some price checks for her. I could also see another middle-aged blonde woman browsing the selection and gathering a few items, but she didn't look like she needed help, so I let her be. I didn't see her heading to the change room, but she clearly must have, as a few moments later, there was suddenly the sound of screaming from inside. I quickly apologized to the lady I was helping, and I head in, where I saw the following. Goth Girl was standing near the back row of changing rooms with a concerned look on her face. She has a collection of blouses, skirts, pants, etc. hanging over one arm, and she's holding a couple of bras in her other hand. Between Goth Girl and the entrance is the woman I saw before, who I'm gonna call SB for Stupid Bitch from now on, also known as Karen. Karen is screaming a variety of broken sentences, and she's basically red with rage. It was hard to make out what she was saying, but it was mostly along the lines of, "You can't be here, and how dare you come into the changing rooms?" She was also threatening to call the police at this point. For her part, Goth Girl was trying to calm Karen down by saying that she was an employee, and she was just doing her job and cleaning up, but Karen was having none of it, and she kept screaming her head off. Anyways, this was the point in time where I decided to intervene, even though I was admittedly confused as what was going on. Even if Karen didn't know that Goth Girl was an employee, there was no reason for her to be that bothered by another customer being in the change rooms. So I basically say, "Excuse me, ma'am, is there a problem?" Hearing my voice, Karen turns on the spot and she violently gestures towards Goth Girl while yelling, "This effing degenerate was stealing women's clothing. Call the police, he's disgusting." I respond, no ma'am, that's actually not. The Karen cuts me off and says, "How dare you? Don't you have any self-respect as a woman? Don't let this happen." Again, I try to explain that Goth Girl is an employee, but Karen cuts me off again, and she says, "It's because of apologists like you that sick freaks like him think they can get away with it. Call the police." Now, hindsight is 20/20, but it wasn't until that moment that I realized that Karen thought Goth Girl was a guy. So I say to Karen, "Ma'am, that's my coworker Brittany, she's just cleaning up the clothes." I tried to put some emphasis on Goth Girl's name and gender, but Karen apparently wasn't listening since she didn't stop her tirade at all. She then stops pointing at Goth Girl and she points at me instead. Karen then says, "Don't you dare make excuses for him. What, is he your boyfriend or something?" Now, maybe this woman's had some experiences in her past that made her sensitive to situations like this, and she wasn't hearing or seeing things properly right now. So I resisted the urge to snap at her, and I tried to take a deep breath to center myself. But the next thing I knew, she was in my face, jabbing me in the chest, screaming something about entitled girls from the city. That's where everything went from bad to worse. See, Goth Girl wasn't happy seeing me getting physically assaulted by the lady, so she drops the clothing she was holding, and she takes a step towards us and she shouts, "Stop!" holding her hand out firmly in the universal stop sign, as we'd been trained to do with aggressive customers. Karen reacted scarily fast, whirring back around on my coworker and actually pulled out a can of pepper spray from somewhere on her person. She didn't even give a warning or anything, it just happened so quick. Just like that, Karen fires a burst of pepper spray right into my coworker's face, getting it all over her eyes, nose, and mouth. Of course, my coworker immediately yelps in pain and tries to turn away, with Karen attempting to follow her, chasing her down so she could spray her again. Now honestly, I'd like to say that this is the moment I leapt into action and I smacked the Karen for what she'd done to my coworker. But it turns out that I'm not brave enough to put myself into harm's way like that, so I just screamed as loudly as I could. This scream at least succeeded in getting Karen to finally stop her pursuit of Goth Girl, turning to me in surprise. For several long moments, we just glared at each other. The only sound in the change rooms were my coworker's quiet moaning about her eyes. Before either of us said anything more, the floor manager comes and one of the security guys comes rushing in. The floor manager looks at my coworker, crouched on the floor and moaning with hands over her eyes. The manager then looks over at the can of pepper spray in Karen's hand and then at me and asked, "What happened?" I then pointed accusingly at Karen and said, "She pepper sprayed her." And that's when Karen comes in and screams, "This degenerate tried to attack me. He's a pervert. You shouldn't allow guys like this in your store. And this dumbass employee tried to protect him. He was trying to grope me. Call the police. I want him arrested right now." At this point, there is about a heartbeat of silence as the manager stares blankly at Karen for a moment, probably trying to comprehend what she just said. The next second, floor manager's right in Karen's face, and she looks livid. I want to note here that my manager's a woman, in her mid-40s, and she's all of 5 feet tall. But she has a commanding presence and a loud voice, and I'd never seen her this mad before or since. The manager screams, "What the F did you just say about my employee? She's a woman, you stupid idiot. And she's a teenager. You just maced a teenage girl." At this moment, the red of Karen's face was replaced with white as all the color drained out of her face. I don't know if she finally realized her mistake or she was just scared, but I didn't stick around to find out, as manager told me to take Goth Girl to the bathroom so we could try washing her eyes out. At this point, Goth Girl couldn't see, so I had to guide her by hand, making sure to give Karen the nastiest look I could as we left. Since I spent the next 20 minutes or so helping my coworker wash off the stuff, I didn't get to see what happened to Karen. But from what my manager told me later, she had called the cops on her and had her arrested. There was a police beat inside the shopping center, and Goth Girl and I had to attend there to give statements on what happened. After which, my role in events was done. I believe Karen ended up getting charged for assault and possession of pepper spray, which is apparently illegal in my state. I'm not sure on the details of that. My coworker didn't take any shifts for a couple of weeks, but she did come back to work after that and said she was okay. She did grow out her hair though, and while she said it had nothing to do with the incident, I suspect she really wanted to avoid a potential repeat. I didn't press her on it. Guys, all I can say is I feel so bad for Goth Girl coming to OP's defense and getting absolutely showered with pepper spray. And shame on Karen for just going right for the pepper spray, absolutely convinced that Goth Girl was a man without hearing them out. And guys, when I read that Karen pepper sprayed a teenager, holy cow, is she in big trouble or what? Like, macing someone when you shouldn't have mace in the first place is already bad enough. But assaulting a teenager with it, I don't see that being a light charge. Like, what a mistake on Karen's part. So this whole thing happened a few days ago. I'm an intern, and I'm working away with another intern, and I'm in the same office that the secretary works in. We're working on a new production line in the factory, and I'm working out some database kinks. The database that I made, and I'm mighty proud of myself. Because the dress code for interns is non-existent, and the company's dress code in general is pretty lax, I am rocking a pretty blue skirt and an elegant black blouse. I am also a blonde girl in her 20s. Suddenly, Mr. Karen barges in, and he begins to yell at me. I only caught parts of that, but it includes the R word, secretary, dumb bitch, etc. It took me a while to piece the whole story. Apparently, the guy was supposed to sign an important deal with the client, but someone, presumably the new secretary, made a mistake in the client's name, typing it into the file, turning it into a curse word. Now, I can't tell you the exact name, of course, but it was like if the client's name was being spelled Mr. W-O-H-R-E and someone typing Mr. W-H-O-R-E by accident. So Mr. Karen's shouting at me, and the other intern is pissing his pants, and I have no idea who this guy is. I don't work with people outside the production circle, clients, or anything. I just make apps and databases and hold them. Now I try to tell him as much, but Mr. Karen's louder than me, and he says I'm in big trouble. I lost us a client and stuff. I kept most of my cool, as I have worked in retail for a long while before, so, you know, devils don't scare you anymore if you've been the assistant manager in hell. He says he's taking me to the CEO and getting me fired. So naturally, I go to the CEO's office. Mr. Karen comes in, all respectful suddenly, and he starts explaining the situation. As he's about halfway through the first sentence, my dad, the CEO, interrupts him and goes, "Wait, let me hear what she's come to say first. She's working on the line starting on Monday, so everything has to be done today." Since I'm already there, I tell Dad about the issue with the system, and the fact that we'll need to make a reboot, and he'll have to make 2 other line stops as well. He schedules the reboot for 18 o'clock the same day, and he sends me on my merry way. Mr. Karen starts to get the picture because he didn't stop me when I went out. It turned out that Mr. Karen was supposed to fill those things himself, but he pushed it onto a secretary, and she misspelled the name in the document. Mr. Karen got a warning, and the secretary got told to not accept documents from him anymore, and he's to fill every single document himself, even those that usually would be the secretary's responsibility. And I presume he met the real secretary at some point. So, you know, I do work here, but not where Mr. Karen thought I did. And certainly not for him. Guys, finding out that OP is the CEO's daughter was amazing. And Mr. Karen sounds like such a horrible boss though, right? Like, how can you get mad at someone for messing something up when you were supposed to do it in the first place? Talk about entitlement. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDOWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories today. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's a wild one. A Karen demands OP's brand new electric car. It's wild. Go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie will see you guys in the next one. We love you.